So I think we are live now. I hope everyone can hear me today. Yeah, welcome to our BIM webinar, Start from the Scratch. And today we would like to introduce you to all you need to know about BIM when this topic comes into the game for you. I would also like to introduce us briefly. Next to me is Philipp Schwab, our man when it comes to the webinars. Hello, Philipp.
Yes, hello. I'm welcoming you to our new webinar format. It's the frontal CAD-PLAN webinar format.
Nice, yeah. My name is Henning Wagner, and I will take care of your questions, which you can ask in the chat in the usual way. This time we will read them out directly at the end anonymously, of course, so we can get it done right away. A question that can't be answered directly, we will do later after the webinar. Then we can get you to do it live if you want, or we do it in the background, so we hide the screen and the camera, and we do it with the chat, so as we done it in the last webinars. Yeah, but first of all, we want to start with a little survey. No, I have to forget one. I have to forget Jochem to introduce.
Hi.
Hello, Jochem. It's
your time.
It's your time.
Yeah, good afternoon. I almost wanted to jump right in and say, you're forgetting me.
I'm sorry.
So hi from my side, I'm Jochem from the Netherlands. I've been working in the facade industry a couple of years now, almost 20. And I will take you into some general issues on the topic of BIM later on in this presentation. And you will see me when I'm talking, and otherwise I will turn off my camera so you can see Henning and Philipp a little bit better and the presentation in the background as well. So I'm looking forward to this presentation and talk to you later.
Thank you, Jochem. Jochem is also responsible for the Netherlands, Belgium, the UK, and the Scandinavian countries. So if you have questions or you are interested in more, then you can write him directly after this show. Yeah, okay, now everything is done, I see here. Okay, so let's start with a little survey in the beginning, and we want to know a little from you. And yeah, please answer, what is the important character in BIM, in this word BIM? We done this webinar a couple of weeks ago in German language, and I think we get the same result here in the English version, but the Germans are not so familiar with the topic BIM, but I think you know the correct answer, but it's struggling a little bit, so some have no clue. That's what we want to change today. Okay, we leave this for 1 minute or a little bit longer. At the moment, we have more than 100 people are participating our webinar, so thank you for that, and they are coming from all over the world.
Yes.
So that's why we are broadcast this webinar at 2 p.m. and that's not in the morning, in the evening, or 2 p.m. It's a good time to catch the most of you, I think. Okay, so I think how many have 56, 57% have give up their vote, and now I think we are closing the survey, and yeah, I close now, and then I show you the result, and the result is 22% B, 40% I, and 27% M. And the correct answer is the I. It's the information in BIM, and that's one thing you should keep in your mind in the next 25 minutes, I think. Okay, so I think we can start now directly. I'm responsible for the questions, and now it's your turn. Thank you.
Thank you, Henning. Yes, many think that BIM has something to do with only software, or that BIM is a planning process. BIM is an information container which information management is operated. We will show you right away to imagine this correctly. Which CAD software can support you in BIM? For example, multidisciplinary software solutions, or we talk about object-oriented AEC software, like, for example, Autodesk Revit or CAD-PLAN, or architecture solutions, for example, like Archicad, branch solutions like Athena, Apollon, Advanced Steel, or other market-related product support you in information management. So BIM is not a software, but software like the named CAD solutions can be BIM ready. So the building model, the digital twin, is by all project participants with information which is replaced in a defined structure. It's like the CDE, the Common Data Environment. It's like a very big folder structure. Applicable rules are laid down in the DIN 19650. It's the most important source for this. Everything flows in this EN or DIN EN ISO together. But there are also other standards or guides in countries that are advanced in the topic of BIM, such as, for example, the Singapore BIM guide, for example. Yeah, some may ask themselves why. How you can imagine this in a graphic way. In the example on the left, we see the scenario with the exchange of only 2D data, such as plans or digital printing, like PDF, for example. In this example on the left, we see the scenario with and all involved stakeholders inform each other, which explain the word exchange. So architects, for example, exchange informations with other engineers they are involved, as well as with manufacturers of components and, for example, also technicians. Other stakeholders may also share the same informations with each other together. The project manager and the facility manager are also interested in this information on the same time. In this scenario, one or more stakeholders additionally share outdated or incorrect information. In the graphic on the right side, we talk about the BIM interoperability. What does it mean? So with BIM, it is possible to make the information workflow in such a way that the data sharing is together possible. All stakeholders access a central data environment, and the structure and the depth of the information called LOIN is defined at the beginning and is monitored and controlled by BIM specialists. Information needed by the user is in the database, the CDE. This does not mean, however, that this works quietly. You still have to talk to each other, and the communication is very important. Yeah, the question is, where is BIM? But this would be the wrong question, because we would be like asking, is there also a folder in the middle of the Bavarian forest in Germany, or in Greenland, or perhaps in the South American jungle? Yes, because there are also people with smartphones, laptops, and computers, and they have file folders with informations. The question is, where or how is the BIM methodology being used? We can see from this map which countries are in which stage of the BIM methodology. It is interesting to see how different these stages are, without belittling or highlighting some countries. However, we can also see that Germany's are not one of the early birds. We will look at some countries now in Europe and how advanced they are in the topic of BIM. What does it look like in Europe? We have highlighted some of the countries around us. Sorry, but we cannot cover all European countries due of time reasons. We can see that the Scandinavian countries are far ahead on this topic of BIM. These countries have started early to introduce BIM in the implementation of building projects. Various associations and organizations have also formally pushed BIM. BIM has gradually become established and gone from being recommendation to being mandatory. In the next 3 European countries have made a big step forward into BIM. The United Kingdom is even considered a reference point in Europe because BIM regulations and levels have been implemented consistently. For the BIM level, we talk about the level of maturity of the methods. Interestingly, France has pushed BIM forward with a financial plan and large projects. In order to make it easy and small for example, mid-sized companies to get started, they even provide a free BIM tool in France. Spain has also recognized the advantageous the digital construction process early and has implemented the use of BIM with the help of companies, also associations and ministry. Yes, dear Jochem, can you perhaps say something more about, for example, your country, the Netherlands, or the other countries you travel to?
Yeah, well, traveling to the other countries has been restricted, of course. But it's like you said, there's a lot of difference between each country. I know in the UK a couple of years ago, well, more than a couple of years ago, they made it mandatory for government buildings to work with a BIM workflow, pushing BIM forward a lot. There are big differences in how BIM is used because of the standards are being different. So what we need to do in the Netherlands, let's say, is something not totally different, but the way we do it is different than in the UK. It's about the process. It's about how each party within the building sector works with it. It's about how software is being used, and it's about how it's being communicated to each other. And the UK has been ahead of its time, actually, similar to the Scandinavian countries and the Netherlands actually as well. But we do see issues arising. We want to take it further, but we run into limitations within hardware, actually. So it's not about software we can use, but about what the hardware can do with the software at the moment. Limiting us, making us try to find new solutions in how to make data easier accessible. And then again, changing the standards we are using. And then within the countries, it's different again as well. So making BIM projects overseas might be the most difficult thing to get into, but it's not that it's going to give you real trouble. It's about being prepared and opening yourself to the process. And then BIM is actually a really easy-going workflow. But maybe a little bit on that later in the presentation.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Jochem. Yes, so, and finally, we come to the DACH region. In Austria, it is noticeable that BIM is also part in the ÖNORM and of course also in the ISO 9650. We can also see the Switzerland is working of the implementation of BIM. A showcase project is, for example, the Geneva airport. And in Germany, we have the BIM step-by-step plan in 3 steps to digital building. BIM has been tested in pilot projects and has been used regularly in infrastructure project Science 2020 in this year. Yeah, you correctly recognized early that the I, or the I for information, is the most important letter in the abbreviation BIM. It is therefore not primarily about repetition of the visual level of detail of the model, but about the level of information required by the client or the general contractor. You can see in the graphic that the bubbles are at the beginning of the individual phases. In practice, the question often arises when to start with BIM or information management in a project. Here, it is important to recognize that if the client orders BIM for the project, it should be started as early as possible with BIM. It would be a shame or a little bit shame to realize at the end on the phases that BIM has been paid but not received. What questions can you ask when it comes to a contract negotiation? It could be that even the client does not clearly define the topic of information management in the project or at the beginning of the project. You can ask what level of information needs are required. Is the client familiar what information management or BIM really means? Who needs which information at the beginning, in which phases or states? Is the client or the general contractor familiar with the common terms and knows what it means? For example, LOIN, LOD, LOC, LOI, IFC files, open BIM, closed BIM, and so on. In this information in the discussion gives you later security to be able to approach the project with information management or BIM correctly. So let's look at 2 other scenarios. On the left side, we see scenario closed BIM. Yes. And what does it mean in general? You can see on the symbols that the data changing between the disciplines and the client is closed with a lock. This means that software specific file forms are defined before planning in order to be sure that the required informations can be exchanged in the best possible way. In this way, you are bound to use specific software. For example, formats for Revit, RFA, or Athena AutoCAD, DVG, and Apollon Inventor, the IEM files. Of course, it must be guaranteed that the required information is also supplied in the in these files. The scenario on the right shows an open BIM scenario. This means that open formats are allowed, that the software you use is not bound. For example, the exchange with IFC, Industrial Foundation Classes, a globally open and valid format. At the beginning, we discussed that software can you support in BIM. This means that the model with the required informations can be exported as an IFC file and can flow into the information management. But carefully, even an IFC file has been to check whether the required information is included in the file. This must be tested correctly. Here we still see a mixed form of an open and a closed BIM scenario where the various trades exchange informations with each other using defined formats, but the overall coordination is handled in an open format. An important practical principle applies to these three scenarios. It must be discussed, tested, and established that yes, the required informations, whether open in an open or closed formats and software, that the required informations can be passed on. This must be guaranteed in these three variants. We can say it works better or worse with open BIM or closed BIM or a mixed format. This is determined individually for each project and how it works best. So let's now look at some vocabulary that plays a major role in BIM and the general meaning, but also the significance for facade construction, for example. Jochem want to say something about LOC, and it's not only the coordination C, the letter C, it's also the character for communication as well.
Yeah, it's one thing that's always being forgotten in a BIM workflow. We always talk about LOI, LOD, LOG, which you are going to talk about after this. And it's about detail, it's about information, it's about how do things look and what do they look like. One important thing is what do we need at what time in the process and how do we want it to look at what time in the process, because I can generate an entire detail when I'm only looking at the general sizes of an element, and that makes no sense. So you need to discuss with the client what they need at which time in the process. And sometimes even 2D drawings can be the thing they need just to get an idea on how a principal detail looks like. The thing is, you'll get a contract with a BIM project, and usually when doing a BIM project now, you get this contract when the entire 3D model has been done by the architect. And you then need to look at how you want to send the right information to this architect. But if the architect has done basics in a different way than your supporting files can do, then the process for your BIM project will be different. So it's always about discussing it and being open to your client on what can we do and how can we do this to achieve what you want to achieve, not only to achieve here's a file, but what do we need to do with this file and why do we want this information to be there? Because making a element that only needs to tell how big it is and at which spot it is in the overview, and then putting all the information of all the glass parameters into it, it makes no sense. So talking to your client, what do you need, when do you need it, is really important. And getting this communication going, then everything else, the LOD, LOI, LOG is easy. It's okay. Like that. Yeah.
Thanks, Jochem.
Yeah.
And these are interesting points, and we explain this a little bit more with some graphics. So, for example, first, let's go to the LOI. This graphic shows now such in information can be contained in a facade. As specialized, you certainly know very well how much information and parameters have to be taken into attention for a facade. For example, all parts contain article numbers, so that component can be precisely identified later during, for example, a maintenance. Physical values also play a major role. Does my facade meet the required informations? Can I approve these required informations? Does the facade have other add-on parts like sun protection? And what does this sun protection do? And what about electrical installations and where they are located? Which insulation class products are installed? And do they meet the specified safety standards, for example? Are the maintenance intervals and are there maintenance intervals, and yes, and which of it? Can I supply test documents or making some other documents like the CE documents, for example? We see a lot of informations and need to clarify what information is needed in a facade and how I can share this information from, for example, a facade. Yes, so now we present a graphic which we discussed the LOD levels. We have separated between a facade and window elements, and in general, the grid of the LOD levels goes from 100 to 500. For example, with an LOD of 100, the window is only visible as a mesh solid that contains the required attributes or informations. Such a mesh solid is used, for example, to determine how much window or facade surface a new building contains in order to perform various analyses. In LOD 200, for example, you can already perform collision detection, for example. This does not require any seals or something like this, but only a simple 3D solid of these elements. Maybe a 3D solid that represents the opening of the window sash, and at the level 500, a window or facade is displayed as it, or they actually look in the finished state. But why is this important to talk about this? Because you have to consider what information is required and whether a high LOD makes sense at all must be displayed. Component with LOD 100 and or 200 has the same mass of information as a component with LOD 500, for example. And why is this so important? It's an aspect of the amount of data. The higher the degree of representation, the larger, so the files becoming larger, which may be difficult for software to handle later. Let's assume a window, for example, with a LOD of 500 and the required information has 20 megabyte data size and exists in the building 300 times. So then we can imagine how performant the whole model becomes for a software product. However, the information has supplied attributes can already tell a lot about the component. So for example, which membrane or sealing components are used, which mounting elements, You don't need a highly detailed representation of the element if the information is sufficient. Exactly these points must be coordinated by the client or the general contractor. Yeah, now to a suitable representation of the LOC, the level of coordination. Funnily enough, you can see what this value is for. If BIM has been used correctly for these two projects of the elements, it would certainly have been possible to do something more with these two windows. Those of you have heard of our new airport in Germany, the Berlin-Brandenburg Airport, BER or EDDP. You know that these values should not be, not interesting enough or not important. BIM would have been better used there. So we are talking about the location or the position of the building component, an element or facade in the project itself. So, and which dimensions are mapped in BIM? Here we come to a diagram which you have seen maybe before. Here we have to say that the different dimensions for the different types of informations were simply continued. 3D represents the building model, 4D, for example, calculations of construction times, or 5D for cost analysis, 6D for maintenance and replacement cycles of the different components of building parts or components, and 7D then stands for various operational data. So for example, energy management, public traffic in the building, or logistical data for, and one can find some such in the internet such diagrams to symbolize the individual value added of this 5 values, but the D can actually also omitted signs about they are not true dimensions. So
never heard about 4D.
Yes, 4D or 7D. So we have this 5 value addeds. So yeah, and let's come back towards the end for more information, especially in our industry, in the facade industry. We can see on the left side a classic facade section that contains a lot of information such as object labels, part labels, vertical levels, and also many dimensions in this section. And also in BIM, you need this information to build your facade later. That's very important, or important point. However, it can be decided who really needs these 2D plans. Maybe only the architect, and then of course the installer later and the construction site. On the right side, we see a detailed 3D model of the facade that contains many attributes as informations. And also here you can save required informations and include it in the information management as we discussed. For example, you don't have to represent the joining membranes in a 3D, so how they joining together, so in a 3D model. The technical or the installer on the construction site knows later how to do these things later on the construction site. But we also see the level of detail, of a high detail for the required informations. A simple representation of the facade, for example, the sheet metal or the different parts, the sun protection, would be completely sufficient. If it is agreed with the client, a LOD, for example, 200 would be sufficient, and they provide digital 2D plans and text informations, for example. This would be also BIM. And in the next time, we will show you how our products work in BIM. So, for example, Athena and Apollon in combination, for example, with Revit in 3D and 2D in BIM. So, and now we have the summary of this webinar. Yes, we discussed BIM is a workflow. BIM helps you to identify problems upfront and solve these problems before the parts go to the production. BIM will come to us in the near future, to all of us, and BIM is nothing bad. So it's will be very funny, and it's an important topic. And ask us if you have questions in the topic of BIM.
Yes. And BIM will help you a lot to clarify a lot of things in the future, I think. And I think we can talk about a little with Jochem about it. That BIM is really a nice thing. And in the Netherlands, I think, Jochem, we have some big buildings done yet with the help of BIM. And I hope that if you think about the errors or the mistakes are on the building, it's more or less, I think, if they are really using BIM.
Yeah, it is.
Any counts or something like that? Any
numbers on it? No, I don't have numbers on it, but it's if you can get the BIM process on a project running smoothly, and it's about, of course, about how the contract is being won as well, you know.
Yeah.
But if you are early in this process, and you can put information into the project in a manner that it's needed, then yeah, it makes sense to do it, because you will make sure that some errors are found before you are on the building site, and it takes out a lot of costs from the errors that are on the building site, because you've seen it in the BIM
thing, yes, I think.
model. Yeah, and yeah, it's really helpful. And for a lot of people, it's something really new, maybe something scary, but it's about trying and doing and going ahead to do it. And most of the time, the companies asking you to do BIM are just as new into it. So it's nothing to be scared of, actually. Yeah.
Okay. And if you, that goes to all the participators, if you have an issue with BIM, or you want to know something more about BIM, or you are having maybe signed a contract and you have to use BIM and you have no idea maybe, then contact us and we can help you. Not only with our software products, but we can help you as a trusted advisor. So we have the knowledge about BIM. You've seen this in this webinar today with Philipp. Thank you, Philipp. Really nice presentation. And we have Jochem here. He's responsible for all the UK, Denmark, and so on, these countries. And we have all this knowledge around the world that we can help you to make BIM for you to have a good, nice, a brilliant way that helps you to increase some errors, I think. Okay, so that's from our side. We have a little advertisement here on the back. You can scan this QR code if you like, and if you want to have some training with our products, that's with Athena. You know, Athena is the main product if you want to work to draw some facades or windows and doors and so on. But Jochem can maybe show you this if you are interested in our product. And if you want to take part in this course, scan the barcode, and then you can take part with a little payment on it. Okay, so that's all from our side. Philipp, thank you.
Yes.
Brilliant way. I'm sweating a lot at the moment because outside we have 34 degrees, I think. It's quite hot. We have all these lamps here. We make a photo and post this on LinkedIn so you can take a look how our we ölen up, we say it in Germany. So, and Jochem, the last words to you.
Well, thanks again for joining us on this webinar. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope you've learned some stuff. And if you have any questions, do send us an email, send me a LinkedIn post, whatever it is, the way you want to contact me. You can find me anywhere, I think.
Anywhere.
Looking forward to speaking to you. Yeah, anywhere, almost anywhere. Yeah, if you have my mobile number, you can even call me. So it's no problem.
Okay,
Yeah.
if someone asks us, then we give you then we try to give the mobile number. Nice. Okay, thank you for participating, and wish you a nice week, end of the week, and hope to see you soon here to our BIM webinar part 2 and part 3. And next time we show you how this works with software from the contractor with Revit to you with Athena or Apollon, you know this. And after that we have part 3, and but we hide this a little. Okay, so
Thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.